Sometimes I still do. But when I was a kid, I would definitely get as far away from other people as I could. If that wasn't possible, I'd just leave from my mind. The world would go blank, and I floated, far away. I noticed an eagle. I noticed the sky. I spread my arms wide open. I wanted to fly. I had aphasia. I lost my words and the ability to communicate. When I began speaking again, my voice was barely audible. Later, I would be diagnosed with a developmental disorder complicated by traumatic stress. My dad beat me severely, and when my mom finally left him, I was abducted. He was a Vietnam veteran, and my mom is Asian. Growing up, people told me that I represented a kind of healing from the war. At that time, it made no sense to me. I noticed a code. I noticed a pattern. I traversed an impossible path. I needed to move. My dad was a radio man and relayed codes. At some point, a communication error resulted in several casualties, which left him devastated. He returned home and lost 2 brothers, one to suicide and the other stationed abroad to friendly fire. Although the family suspected it may not have been so friendly. I was named after the latter and given the middle name Eagle. I noticed a prison. I noticed a prism. I weighed the difference. I struggled to breathe. In school, I rarely spoke. When I did talk, it was to question things. It was deemed difficult, but I was genuinely interested in the why, because that's how I made sense of things. My family never shared with me why I wasn't speaking, why I didn't feel normal, why I felt like screaming or was constantly on the verge of tears. I calmed myself down, looking up at the golden eagle perched on the flag. I noticed a car drive up. I noticed a stranger. I flailed my arms and kicked my legs. I sensed familiarity. Despite the abuse I had endured, my mom made me visit with my dad when he was released from prison. It was on the condition of sobriety, but he was a dry drunk. He blamed me for the dissolution of our family, beat me, and then pled for my help in convincing my mom to get back with him. Even tried hypnotizing me with the back of a quarter. I went home and told my mom to never, ever even consider the thought. By high school, I was determined to break the suffocation of silence. I took double the course load, tried out for every play, sat on several committees, and wrote my college admission essays about running around nude in an art museum. I noticed an exit. I noticed relief. I felt the heat of the sun on my face. I hoped it would last. I moved to the Bay Area and was preparing myself to come out to family when 9/11 swept the country into darkness. Soon after, my dad visited me, unloaded a pile of trash into my living room, and placed an eagle statuette atop the heap. Afterwards, I hardly slept or ate for days, and that's when I enlisted in the Marine Corps, feeling the only way to escape my dad was through a fire. But I also needed to know the why. Enlisting was the key to understanding my dad, an irresistible Pandora's box. I noticed innocence. I noticed broken treaties. I was marked for systemic sadism. I knew better, but kept going. Marine training is brutal, and the hazing is out of control. I got shit for my last name. That was expected. No one escaped being broken down into whatever categories they could be heaped into and dehumanized. Our drill instructor assigned laundry to the Chinese. Never mind that I'm half Filipino and the other guy Korean. We were rounded up with Asians from other squad bays and folded sheets on our knees while being yelled at in a twisted echo of Vietnam. They taught parade rest by telling fellow recruits to hover their hands perfectly still behind their backs, guarding their ass, or else funk's gonna get ya. I was Funk, the limp-wristed recruit from San Francisco, named after a dead uncle who was killed by fellow soldiers, diddy-bopping on the way to his own demise. I noticed poppies growing through the cracks in cement. I noticed planes overhead and boarded every flight. I observed coerced consent. I forgot to forget. Our original guide attempted suicide. Someone tried to jump the fence into the neighboring airport. Another violated Donuts Don't Tell, although they weren't supposed to tell us this. He and I had instinctively avoided each other the entire training. I wondered about the details. I watched a group of bullies pump their fists in triumph at the news, and I knew they had been involved. Then they gave me a murderous glance, and I knew I was next. I noticed camel eyelashes. I noticed something in common. I uncovered a hidden smile. I wished I could open my mouth. Out at Camp Pendleton, we were shooting rifle pre-qualifications. Several guys there had hunting experience, and I had an aversion to weapons, but that day I shot really well. My rifle instructor told me not to be cocky about it because in real life I wouldn't score as well. I responded that he was right, because I think killing is wrong. He looked at me like I was crazy. They announced that I had shot best, their way to degrade everyone else for shooting worse than the limp-wristed recruit from San Francisco. That night, we ran through an obstacle course in pitch darkness, with sound effects of explosions and tracer bullets flying above. That's when it struck me hard. The butt of an M16 rifle on the back of my head. I noticed being made into a target. I noticed a signal. I saw a light at the end of the tunnel and ran. I wondered if I was in a coma. I really don't remember how I got to the bright light. I just floated there. I had landed on my own rifle and had bursitis in my knees. That night, while I was sleeping, they poured Tabasco sauce on my face. The next day during qualifications, they stole my field journal. I still shot expert. I didn't get to see a corpsman because we were in the field. I ran up the crucible, my knees swollen to the size of grapefruit. I had no appetite for the breakfast of champions. I noticed a war built on deception. I noticed another world worth fighting for. I realized I was still here, still breathing. I pierced the veil and passed through. After all that, I had no idea how to make things right. I felt the duty to speak up. From then on, I was always in trouble until I was eventually discharged. It seemed so clear to me that we were all being bamboozled, yet everyone kept going along because the consequences of turning around were too great. But I enlisted knowing I wouldn't fit in. Now my suspicions were confirmed. I entered seeking answers. There was no reason to stay. So returning to my once interrupted life, I came out of the closet and raised my voice against the war. Once voiceless myself, I spoke now for others who were forced into silence. I was sent to the brig, and for the first time since it all began, I finally felt at peace.